Welcome back to the Warbird Mistress. Today is Friday the 23rd of January, 1942, and this is A Walk Through the War. Beginning in the Central Pacific Theater of Operations with the Hawaiian Air Force, the B-17s of Task Group 8.9 returned from Nansi in the Fiji Islands to Canton Island in the Phoenix Island. While in the Hawaiian Islands, the 14th Pursuit Wing is inactivated at Wheeler Field, Oahu, in the territory of Hawaii. Originally activated with responsibility for the defense of the territory of Hawaii as the 14th Pursuit Wing, it had since been renamed the Hawaiian Interceptor Command. Suffering tremendous losses in the attack on Pearl Harbor, there was little to inactivate. However, personnel were not dispersed to other units and instead remained in Oahu to become the 7th Fighter Command's Officer Cadre come February. In the American Theater of Operations, we see in the Zone of the Interior, the Air Corps Flying Training Command is established under the Chief of Air Corps and given the jurisdiction over the Southeast, Gulf Coast, and West Coast Flying Training Centers. Major General Barton K. Yount assumes command on the 28th, and the command will be renamed the Army Air Force Flying Training Command come mid-March. With responsibility for all flight training, General Yount will close the command on the 30th of June in Washington, D.C., and the very next day open on the topmost 4 floors of the Texas and Pacific Railroad building in Fort Worth, Texas. The 3 pre-existing training centers, established on 8th of July 1940, are Maxwell Field, Alabama, for those east of the Mississippi, Randolph Field, Texas, for those between the Miss and the Rockies, and Santa Ana Army Air Base, California, for across the Continental Divide. Flight training remained separate from the Army Air Force's Technical Training Command until 1943. By the end of 1942, the command would boast 85 installations, 220,000 personnel, and 19,000 aircraft of all types, both training and combat. Flight cadet applicants were given a draft deferral until they were called up due to fear of losing them to conscription as they tried to keep up with the Army's demand for aircrew and pilots and their capacity to train as many men safely and capably as possible. Starting in 1942, members of the Aviation Cadet Program, or AVCAD, were paid $50 base pay, plus $25 flight pay, and had a $150 uniform allowance for their officers' uniforms, sans a mohair cuff band, and with a blue band on their olive service covers. They also had unique sleeve insignia to reflect their cadet ranks, as seen here. When called to the 2-week classification stage before beginning the 4 9-week training stages, they would be sorted into potential navigators, bombardiers, and pilots. They would then go through pre-flight training at one of the 3 primary cadet centers at Alabama, Texas, or California. After this, they would undergo primary pilot training in 2-seat trainers at one of a number of schools, which would peak at 56 across the country. The PT in PT-13, PT-17, PT-19, and PT-20 stands for Primary Trainer. Basic training in Vultee BT-13 Valiants and other aircraft classed as basic trainers would then take place where pilots would be segregated into those bound for single or twin-engine schools in the final stage, advanced pilot training. Single-engine cadets flew the famous AT-6 Texan, or Harvard in Commonwealth service, and twin and multi-engine pilots flew the Curtiss AT-9 Jeep, Beechcraft AT-10 Wichita, or Cessna AT-17 Bobcat. Beginning also in 1942, graduated pilots then cycled into operational training units, a scheme based on the same named program in the RAF. Yet these were of wildly varying quality as each was trained by the cadre of an operational group, and when they became an operational group, they too took on a satellite training group. This disrupted schedules and training quality was difficult to control. Though by 1943 the system was tweaked into shape, and the OTUs were cranking out quality pilots for each one of the 4 theater commands, and filling the needs of all the new squadrons necessary to prosecute the war. For today, however, everything is still a hope kept alive on paper, as America wonders where the war will lead. And that was Friday, the 23rd of January, 1942. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of A Walk Through the War. I thank everyone for their feedback, their comments, likes, shares. Of course, tell your friends about it if you're enjoying it. Check out the playlist if you missed anything. And I hope to see you for the next episode. Until then, this is Claire, and I am the Warbird Mistress. Take care.